Hey y'all, welcome back to my kitchen. I'm Ashley, and this week we are making a takeout food favorite that Doug and I love, that once we found out how to make it home, it's now the only way we like to eat them. So this week we are making egg rolls with a sweet and sour dipping sauce. And this is something that we do for meal prep, usually maybe once every other month, and we make a big old batch, and then we freeze them in batches, and that way when we're making a quick stir fry for a weeknight meal, we can treat ourselves to a couple of egg rolls that are already almost completely cooked, and then we just fry them off fresh as we make them each batch. So today we're gonna go ahead and make this together. I am doing a meal prep, so we're going to be making a large batch, but I'll show you how just to fry a couple, and of course the ingredients in the description below will only be for one batch, but you can double and triple it if you want if you're serving a crowd. So let's go ahead and get started. I've got this large saute pan with high sides because it will be pretty full on a burner, and it's at medium heat. And the first thing that we're going to add is some toasted sesame oil. And this is one of my favorite Asian ingredients because it smells so delicious. And we're going to pour that into the pot. It has like a nice sweet nutty aroma, it's so good. And then we'll add some chopped scallions. And this is just kind of creating an aromatic, so it won't stay in here very long, just really until we can start smelling everything, which is like 30 seconds. Then we're adding in some garlic, and we're adding in some fresh minced ginger. And I like using fresh in this recipe because of all the other bright flavors. You can get squeezed garlic, and I have used that before, but I just feel like in this recipe, it's great with all the other fresh flavors to have fresh garlic. So now that I can smell it, I'm going to go ahead and add in the shredded carrot. You can shred them yourselves. I just used a box cheese grater, or you can buy shredded carrots if you just want to make it a little easier on yourself. And then we're going to add in the Napa cabbage. So this is shredded Napa cabbage, and I just cut the cabbage in half, and then I slice each half into very thin strips, and that's how I get it shredded. I'm not using a cheese grater or anything like that. We'll let this cook down for a minute, and then we will put in the rest of our ingredients. I learned how to make these in culinary school when I was in the World Cuisines chapter, and I just tried so many cool dishes that we usually just eat when we go out to eat. And Doug and I found that the egg rolls were simple to make, really, and you can make them in big batches. And it was the one dish from that session that we make all the time now. And I'm so glad I learned how to make them. Okay, so now that that cabbage has kind of melted down just a little bit, or, you know, wilted down, didn't melt, but wilted down a little bit, we're gonna go ahead and add in, I have 2 pounds of ground pork. So again, this is a double batch, so it's a lot. But again, the ingredients in the description only will be for a single batch, and that'll just be 1 pound of pork instead of 2. So we'll break this up with the spatula and let it brown. And once it's completely browned and the vegetables have also cooked down, then we are going to strain it to get all of the fat out and lay it out on a sheet pan to cool, and then we'll wrap them in the egg roll wrappers. But first, let's get this cooked down. This will probably take about 15 minutes or so since we have a large batch. And I'm going to add a little bit of liquid as well. And this is just some soy sauce. I like to use low sodium soy sauce when I'm cooking because then you can control the salt content in your dish. And soy sauce is a really salty condiment, so that's another reason why I like to be able to use the low sodium, so I can control the salt even more. And then the last thing we're gonna add before I let this simmer for a while to cook is some black pepper. So just take probably a half a teaspoon and sprinkle it around. And we'll just stir it around to incorporate, and then we'll let this simmer and stir occasionally until the pork is brown and cooked through. The pork is cooked all the way through, and now we're going to strain it to get any of the extra juices that are in the pan out so it doesn't give us a soggy egg roll. Once we've poured it out, then we'll put it onto a sheet pan and allow it to cool, just so it's not too hot when we put it into the egg roll. This is what the egg roll mixture looks like when it's finished cooking and it's drained. I lay it out on a sheet pan to make sure that it is nice and spread out, and that way when it cools, everything cools evenly and it cools quickly. So also, if you're looking to make this for meal prep, or if you're looking to make it ahead of time and fry their egg rolls later in the evening, if you're having friends or family over around your table to have a Chinese food dinner, then you can actually make this ahead of time and put it in the refrigerator for one day, so up to 24 hours, and then while it's cool, roll it out into the egg rolls. So it's a really versatile, crowd-friendly recipe. Let's let this cool, and then we'll start making our egg rolls. Our egg roll filling has cooled to about room temperature. It probably took 20 minutes max for that to happen. And now it's time to roll out the egg rolls. So to do that, I have my egg roll mixture here, and I have some egg roll skins here. You can find these in the grocery section where they have the refrigerated salad dressing, so close to the produce section. And you want to be careful that you use only one at a time. I've made this mistake before. It had double egg roll skins on each egg roll, and they were super puffy but not done on the inside. So make sure that you get one egg roll skin at a time. And they're very thin, so just be gentle with them. And they are cool. They're not really cold, but they're not room temperature either. So it's just a really thin egg roll wrapper skin. And we'll put it to where we have a point towards us and a point away from us, and then 2 points kind of out to the side. And we'll take a scoop of the egg roll mixture, about 1/4 of a cup. And then we'll take the corner and wrap it around the filling. So kind of like a burrito here. So wrap it around the filling and then tuck it so it's like hugging the filling really well. And then we have 2 egg yolks here mixed, and a pastry brush or a marinating brush. And we're going to use this egg as like a glue. So just brush it around the edges of the exposed wrapper at this point. You can use your fingers if you don't have a pastry brush, that's totally fine. And then we're going to take each corner and wrap it over. Kind of make sure this is a tight roll, and then wrap it over and into the center. Roll it a little bit over and into the center. I'm gonna add a little bit more egg yolk here, since that will be a seam that needs to make sure it's shut. And we will just finish rolling it up. And you can see the egg roll glue, or the egg yolk, excuse me, egg roll egg yolk. The egg yolk created a glue and just closed each of those seams. So we'll put this on a sheet pan and finish up with the rest of the egg rolls. I finished wrapping the egg rolls, and like I said, we're doing meal prep today, so most of them will go into the freezer. And what I like to do is lay them out onto a sheet pan like this, and I'll go ahead and freeze them overnight, and then that way they get nice and firm, and then I will vacuum seal them in batches and put them into the freezer for later use. If you try to vacuum seal them now, they're way too soft and they'll really just kind of crunch up and become vacuum sealed globs of wrapped paper and egg roll mixture. So I like to go ahead and make sure that they are nice and hard before they go into the freezer bags. But we're gonna go ahead and fry up a couple so you can see what they look like, and of course so we can taste test one. I'm heating my oil to 350 degrees. I have just an oil or candy thermometer that you can find at the grocery store, and it goes all the way up to 400 degrees. So we'll let it finish going up to 350 degrees because that is going to be our frying temperature, and then we'll add in the egg rolls 2 at a time. The oil is at 350 degrees, so let's go ahead and start frying a couple of egg rolls. I'm going to take some tongs, and we will slowly lower 1 egg roll at a time into the hot oil. And we'll just do 2 so we're not overcrowding the pan. And I'm using just vegetable oil here. Actually, I think we can fit 3. And I just filled it up halfway up the pot, so probably about 5 cups. And this is a medium size or a large size saucepan. So now we're just going to fry these until they're nice and golden brown, and then we'll put them on a paper towel lined sheet pan and let them drain a little bit. While these are frying, I'm going to go ahead and make our sweet and sour dipping sauce. It's very simple, super flavorful, and very inexpensive to make. I have a medium-sized saucepan on a low burner over here, and I'm going to add in water and distilled white vinegar. And of course, the recipe is linked in the description below with exact quantities of all the ingredients. And then I'm going to go ahead and whisk in some white sugar. And we will make sure we want to whisk until the sugar is completely absorbed into the water vinegar mixture. We'll go ahead and just kind of turn these egg rolls around. You can see they're starting to get golden brown. We want them to be deeper than that color. And we'll give the sugar mixture another whisk. Roll these egg rolls around a little bit. See, they quickly cook. I'm gonna leave them in there for maybe another minute. That one likes to only be on one side, so I'm gonna kind of hold it under for a second to get that other side cooked. And just watch your heat. You wanna try to keep it at 350 degrees. The temperature will drop a little bit when you put the egg rolls in, but they're not super cold, so it shouldn't drop too much. But you want to make sure to keep that oil from getting way too hot. And that one got stuck underneath the thermometer. That's the way to keep it turned on its side. All right, so these look pretty golden brown to me. We are going to take it, and I have a paper towel lined plate or sheet pan. Since we're just doing a few, I don't need a huge sheet pan. But they're a nice golden brown color, and we're going to let them drain a little bit on the paper towels. You don't want them to sit too long on the paper towels because that just then lets it sit in its own grease. So you're just really putting them there very quickly to just dab out the grease a little bit, and then we'll transfer them to a clean plate. We'll go ahead and put one more batch in. And then I'm going to stir my sugar mixture one more time because it's almost completely absorbed into that, or dissolved into the water vinegar mixture. Okay, now that sugar is completely dissolved into the water mixture, I'm going to put in some cornstarch, and this is going to give us that thickened mixture for the dipping sauce. And so as this heats, it's going to thicken, and it will be a nice kind of syrupy, thickened syrup, sweet sauce. And of course we'll dye it red so it has that traditional red color that you get from the Chinese takeout restaurant. So we'll just turn these a little bit so the other side starts to get color. See how they kind of like to flip on one side? Not quite sure how to fix that problem, so I just turn them occasionally. But if you know, drop me a comment below and tell me that secret. And the other egg rolls, like I said, we don't want to leave them too much in the oil, so they are drained, and we're going to just remove them from the oil. I'll get another plate to drain the other batch. But look at those, they look great, right? can't wait to take a taste test. They're super hot, so I'm gonna let them cool and of course have the dipping sauce ready for when I do the official taste test. We're gonna bring this syrupy cornstarch mixture just underneath the simmer. Like I mentioned, I'm going to go ahead and freeze these overnight so they become nice and hard, and then we'll go ahead and put them in the vacuum sealer and save them for when we have a quick stir fry and we can enjoy a nice fresh egg roll. All right, we will let those rest and cool just so they can be eaten safely without scalding the inside of our mouth. We'll go ahead and turn the oil off and just be very mindful because that pot is super hot. And then we'll just bring this up to a simmer, continue doing that, and that will thicken the mixture. And then we will add in that red food coloring to give it its signature color for our sweet and sour dipping sauce. So for the sweet and sour dipping sauce, the vinegar gives it the sour and the sugar gives it the sweet. And then of course the red is just a food coloring that we've always traditionally had in our sweet and sour sauce. I'm sure you could omit it, or if you wanted to use like a natural food coloring like a beet powder, that might also be another good option if you don't want to use the food coloring. It's taken a little while because my old girl here, this this cooktop that I take with me, has a hard time keeping up with two burners going at the same time. So now that this is off, this should speed up just a little bit more. So you can see little tiny bubbles are starting to pop up, which means it's just underneath the simmer, and you can notice it got much thicker. I don't know if you can tell how much thicker it is. See how it's clinging to the sides and the bottom. So we will go ahead and add in a couple of drops of food coloring. I'm just going to do about 3. And then we'll stir that in. There you have your traditional sweet and sour sauce. So I'm gonna go ahead and spoon it into individual serving containers, and that way Doug and I each can have an egg roll and our own little dipping sauce. So we'll turn it off to the heat. I've got our little dipping sauce here. You can make this ahead of time and just keep it cool on the burner and make sure it doesn't get too hot because the sugar will burn on the bottom. But just keep it on low heat and stir occasionally if you want to make it ahead of time. Or it can come to room temperature and it'll just become really thick. And then you can add a little tiny bit of water just to thin it out as you're heating it up. So let's go ahead and have a taste test. I think that's right about time for that. So I've got one of the egg rolls that we made earlier. I'm gonna dip it in some of the sauce. I can already tell how crispy they are, and it's nice and hot, so hopefully I'm not gonna scorch my mouth. I don't know if you can hear the crisp of that. It's so crispy. I love the toasted sesame oil that's infused in the vegetables and the meat. It's one of my favorite parts of Chinese food. I love that flavoring. And the one other thing that I like about making egg rolls at home is because you can choose how much of the ingredients that you want inside. So I know that sometimes when we go out to eat, I feel really gypped when I get an egg roll that's just full of vegetables and not any meat. And I really like that these have a lot of ground pork in them, so they're nice and filling as well. Thanks for joining me today as we made egg rolls with sweet and sour dipping sauce at home. If you liked today's episode, please give it a thumbs up and be sure to subscribe to our channel. We post new content every week. Until next time, cook great food in your kitchen, share it with those that you love, and we'll see you soon.